All right, what's up, everybody? I'm back. Want to talk about this last Boston Celtics game versus the Brooklyn Nets. Celtics win 109-103, go up 3-0 in the series. The series is over. The NBA had a statistic where playoff teams that go up 3-0 are 143-0. So the series is a wrap. It's over. But there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about in regards to this game, the difference between the Celtics and the Nets, why it's played out like this, what's going on with KD and Kyrie, that kind of stuff, and a few other things. The first thing I want to say is it would be really easy to gloat here as a Celtics fan, as someone who picked the Celtics to win in 6, who thought the Celtics were a much better team, who was completely befuddled and infuriated that there were all of these experts on ESPN picking the Nets to win this series, that Vegas had the Nets as the second most likely team in the Eastern Conference to reach the NBA Finals, which is just insane. So, there is a part of me that really wants to gloat and rub it in, like, all of these morons that thought that this team didn't deserve to be a 7 seed. They're a 7 seed for a reason, and I'm going to break that down as well. But I did want to say that I think this series is closer than it looks. I mean, you look at the 3-0, and we're probably going to sweep the Nets. Body language wise, the Nets just look defeated towards the end of this game. Their 2 stars look exhausted. I mean, Kyrie's interviews, as always, are just an absolute circus, just talking like the series is already over. But let's not forget that the first game of this series, the Celtics easily could have lost. We won it on a game-winning shot. So that easily could have been a game for the Nets. The second game in the series, we were losing pretty much the entire game. We played 3 quarters of basketball, like pretty terrible. Just managed to stay down by 10 points or so, stay within striking range, so that when we made that incredible run in the fourth quarter, we were able to actually win pretty comfortably. But that game was pretty stressful for 3 quarters of it. And then this game where the Celtics, really kind of took control of the game early on in the second quarter and never let it go. But at the same time, there were multiple points in this game where the Nets pushed to within a possession or 2 or 3. So I think a lot of people will say, you look at the final score, we only won by 6, and they'll try to say that, the Celtics actually easily won this game. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I do think that we were in control for the entire game, but, the Nets pushed back a lot of times in this game. And the only reason that we won semi-comfortably is because every time the Nets made a run, we countered. All it would have taken was one breakdown, really, for this game to come really down to the wire. So, yes, the Celtics are up 3-0. We have a commanding lead. We're going to win the series. We're probably going to sweep them, and people are going to roast the Nets, deservedly so. But let's not forget that, that first game could have gone either way. The second game, it was really competitive up until the end. And even in this game, I thought the Nets, played pretty well. So, yeah, let's start there. Next thing I want to talk about is Kevin Durant, because I know Kevin Durant's going to get a lot of criticism, and again, probably deservedly so, for this game. People had this insane expectation of what level Kevin Durant was going to play at and was going to have to play at to win this series. And obviously he has fallen woefully short of that. Now, that being said, coming into this game, he was averaging 25 points a game. So everyone's been roasting Kevin for playing so poorly. But this was really the first game that he had a really bad game. And I think the key number here is 11. And 11 is the number of shots that Kevin Durant took. He played 46 minutes. He played all but 2 minutes of this game and took 11 shots. I mean, that is just an insane number to me. You can look at the games previously. He didn't shoot the ball well, but at least he shot the ball. He got to the free throw line. I think there was in game 2 that he I think he went to the free throw line like 20 times. Uh, so to see him only take 11 shots in this game is really baffling. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on with Kevin Durant, but I imagine it's a lot of things. I imagine part of it is he's never seen defense like this. I mean, I don't want to use too much hyperbole, but the Celtics defense is incredible. And the Celtics defense on Kevin in particular has been just really physical, roughing him up, making him work for everything, and just exhausting him. So I think that's part of it. I think part of it is just the reality that we kind of seem to gloss over, the fact that Kevin Durant is an older player now, and he has had multiple severe injuries. I was shocked earlier in the year how good he looked coming back from an Achilles injury. I was really surprised. And then, of course, he had an injury halfway through the season and came back from that as well. I mean, these things add up. And there's a big difference between dropping 30 in a regular season game where the other team may or may not really care or have the intensity that you see in playoff basketball. And then what he's seeing in this series with one of the greatest defenses we've seen in a long time, keying in on him in particular. It's almost a different sport. And so I think that's part of it. I think part of it is mental exhaustion, just with everything. You know, being Kyrie Irving's teammate is mentally exhausting. All of the crap with Kyrie this year, the vaccination stuff. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Oh, now James Harden has a beef with Kyrie because Kyrie isn't ready to play. So now James Harden wants to leave. Now we're going to get Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons can't play because he's a clown. So he's just going to sit on the bench. And all of this stuff is mentally draining and exhausting. And so I really think that it's a combination of all of these things. You know, it's physical, playing every single minute of the game, needing to be borderline perfect to try to win. It's mental. Just being around Kyrie Irving is mentally exhausting. And all of that stuff has, I think, come together to basically show us the worst Kevin Durant we've ever seen in the playoffs. It's remarkable, really. I don't want to talk too much about Kyrie, but what can I say? I've been saying it my whole life. He's a career loser. And I know he has a championship ring, and I know he had a huge shot in that series, but let's be honest. He never would have been there without LeBron James. And so we've seen, you know, Kyrie's career sans LeBron is not pretty. And this is just more, to me, this is just more of the same. And there is kind of a vindictiveness about me laughing about it for Brooklyn fans because I've been through it. I had to live through this same crap when Kyrie was on our team and he's trying to guard Giannis in the playoffs and he's just destroying our chemistry in the locker room. So look, at least it's not our problem anymore. So another thing I wanted to talk about that I think is huge and is obvious. It's an obvious thing that matters. And I don't know why these experts on ESPN or Vegas don't understand this, but the word is continuity. And the Nets have none of it. And the Celtics have all of it. So looking at the Nets season, like I just outlined, it's just been filled with nonsense and uncertainty. Between Kyrie Irving, can he play? Can he not play? Can he play at home? Oh, he can't play at home. He can play on the road. And then James Harden just being fat forever and not wanting to do anything but play James Harden style basketball, not getting along with his teammates, wanting out, demanding a trade, all the trade rumor stuff. And then getting Ben Simmons. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? And then obviously Kevin coming back from injury, getting injured again. And then, just the role players. When we played and lost to the Nets in the regular season, LaMarcus Aldridge was a huge part of that game. Now he's buried on the bench. He's not playing. Today we saw Blake Griffin for the first time in I don't even know how long it's been since Blake Griffin has played. And all of a sudden he's in this do or die moment. And he was amazing. Actually, I have a huge amount of respect for what Blake Griffin did in this game today. It was really amazing to see. But it's like, that's crazy. Why is he in the biggest moments when we haven't even seen him in this series? And there's just a lot of that in the Nets. They don't know who they trust. They don't have solidified rotations. They don't have defined roles. And, a lot of this is due to injuries and uncertainty. A lot of it's Kyrie's fault. A lot of it's Steve Nash's fault for just not developing a clear hierarchy, for not learning which role players that he can really trust. And it's a huge issue. And you might be able to get away with it in the regular season when you have players like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving that are so talented that maybe you don't need the continuity. But I'm telling you, man, when you get into the playoffs, every possession is a battle, and these teams are trying at a level that you just don't see in the regular season. This kind of stuff matters, and it separates the good teams from the great teams, the good teams from the bad teams. And what you're seeing right now is the Celtics are a team where there is a clearly defined hierarchy, where they know exactly which 8 or 9 players they're going to play, how many minutes they're going to play, what their rotations are. And it's been that way for months. And it's made a huge difference in this series. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is Jayson Tatum. And there's a lot of talk about Jayson Tatum basically now surpassing Kevin Durant. And I think it's an interesting conversation. I'm sure that a lot of people will mark it down to overreaction. This is just one series. You can't say that Jayson Tatum is better than this guy who, at the start of the season, everybody thought Durant was either the best player in the world or the second best player in the world. I think I had Kevin Durant third on my best players in the NBA going into the season, behind Giannis and Steph. But maybe I had him number 2. Regardless, he's a top 5 player by anybody's metrics. But he is being outplayed by Jayson Tatum. Clearly, Jayson Tatum is just a better player right now. That, who knows how that's going to shake out. But the reality is Durant is getting older, and Durant is not physically able to do the things that he could do previously because of his age and the injury history that he's had. And Tatum is young. And he is in his physical prime, and he is now starting to enter his basketball prime as well. Tatum is going to be first team all NBA, and Durant is probably going to be second team. Tatum is outplaying Durant in this series, not only offensively, but defensively is like shocking to see how good Jayson Tatum's defense has been. Watching these possessions, watching him just terrorize Kevin Durant has been remarkable to watch. And I don't think that people understand, like, I heard some comparisons about prime Kawhi. You got to look at Kobe Bryant when he was in his prime, the way he was able to play two-way basketball. You got to look at Michael Jordan. There are very few examples of a player like Tatum that can do everything on the offensive end and then plays this level of defense, that level of intensity and effort on the defensive end of the ball. You just don't see it very often. So, yeah, I mean, who knows in the bigger picture how things are going to shake out. But as of now, as of this moment, as of even this season, Jayson Tatum is better than Kevin Durant, which is a crazy thing to say, but he just is. Look, he's first team All NBA, Kevin's second. And some people will say, well, Kevin's second because he got injured. Okay. But, injuries are part of basketball, and being healthy and being available is part of basketball. And Jayson Tatum, one of the greatest things about Tatum that never gets talked about is he is so dependable, reliable, durable. He plays like almost every game, every year. And Durant doesn't. And yeah, again, the defensive side of the ball, the things that Tatum is able to do, the things that Tatum is able to do, Durant has never done. Not even in his prime was Durant, not even when he was on Golden State, and he could pretty much spend as much energy as he wanted on defense because he didn't have to carry the team offensively. Not even then was Kevin Durant on the level that Jayson Tatum is at right now defensively. So role players have been really interesting in this series. Obviously before the series started, all the talk was about Tatum and Brown and Durant and Kyrie, but really the role players have been huge. I mean, especially for Brooklyn, I would say I've been really surprised with how good their role players have been. Bruce Brown had another incredible game tonight. He's been fantastic throughout this series. There's been moments where Claxton has killed us on the boards, where Dragic has hit some daggers. Pleasantly surprised with, Blake Griffin had that incredible little run here late in this game. I've just been pleasantly surprised with how much the Nets role players have helped, because I really didn't think that they were going to be reliable at all. And actually, it's been the opposite. It's been the superstars. It's been Kevin and Kyrie that have let the Nets down. And I think the role players have done, everything that they could do to keep this team in the series. And then for the Celtics, I don't know if you can call Horford a role player, but my God, I'm just blown away by how good Al Horford looks at age 35. His last run for the Celtics, when we were like unsure if we wanted to give him a contract extension because his age, and he was kind of like already slowing down. He couldn't rebound the ball very well. I am just blown away every time I watch Horford play playoff basketball, because he's better now than he was the last time he was here. He looks younger. He's dominating the glass. His defense is just unbelievable. He's hitting 3-pointers. He's just doing everything. And I'm just so shocked. I don't love every move that Brad Stevens has made since becoming GM. In fact, I'm going to talk about one that I'm still unhappy with in a little bit. But man, that trade for Horford has just been an incredible boon for the Celtics team. And then, Grant Williams. Grant Williams has been an absolute revelation. He just gets better and better and better, more dependable. His defense has been remarkable. His ability to hit shots. He's a huge part of this team now. And Peyton Pritchard, a guy who I've always loved, watching him do it in the playoffs, watching him hit these step back threes. I don't think there's everyone talks about Kyrie's handles. He's got the best handles. Look, I'm not going to put Pritchard on that level because he doesn't have the flair, the creativity, the playmaking skills, all that kind of stuff. But I would say, just like, for guys that you trust with the basketball, is there anybody that you trust with the basketball in their hands more than Peyton Pritchard, as far as like just dribbling the ball? As like, I would say, as being the anti Jaylen Brown. Every time Jaylen Brown dribbles the ball, I have a heart attack. Every time Peyton Pritchard is dribbling the ball, I'm 100% confident that he's going to hang on to it, that he's going to keep control of the ball. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but man, it's just nice. It's nice to have a guy when they bring the ball up the court where you just know nothing bad is going to happen to the basketball. And then, of course, his shot making ability has been amazing. Time Lord. It was so incredible to see Rob Williams back from a meniscus injury in like 3 or 4 weeks. I'm shocked. And he only played like 16 minutes in this game, but to me, the eye test, he looked great. And so that's incredible that we're starting to get Time Lord back. We've been so good without him, but the reality is we are a much better team if Time Lord is part, and if he's part of this team and he's healthy. We are just a much better team. And so just seeing him out there and realizing that we're about to probably sweep the Nets, and Time Lord is about to start getting integrated into this team, and that there's a whole nother level that this team can go to. My God, it's like Christmas morning. So exciting. And I'm just trying to restrain myself a little bit, because this team has got me believing in a way that I haven't believed in the Celtics in more than a decade. Coaching was another thing I really wanted to talk about in regards to this game, because it is so clear that the Celtics have just a massive advantage in the coaching department. I have been so impressed with everything Udoka has done this year, but watching him in the playoffs too, like, this is something I know that Celtics fans who were watching the team in the Brad Stevens era can definitely relate to. But Brad Stevens was like just terrible at taking timeouts, at just taking them at the right times. Always tried to get the team to play through it, and they never did. It was like really infuriating as a Celtics fan. And Udoka is just the exact opposite. Every single one of his timeouts in this game was perfect. Absolutely perfect. They missed one defensive assignment. Kevin Durant gets an open 3, timeout. They give up a little short run, timeout. They don't run the offensive set the way he wanted to. Timeout. Every single timeout was perfect. And every single time we took a timeout, the Celtics responded. And that is just incredible. That's incredible coaching. And it's amazing to see. It really is. And Udoka deserves all the credit in the world. And on the flip side of that, Steve Nash, I mean, look, you can't coach a team with Kyrie Irving on it. That's just been established because he what is the word? He destroys the credibility of his coaches. He's insubordinate. You know, this happened with Brad Stevens. Honestly, I think one of the biggest reasons that Brad Stevens ended up failing in his last few years as the Celtics coach was because of Kyrie Irving, was because Brown and Tatum and all those guys, they watched Stevens basically get humiliated by Kyrie. Basically, Kyrie just waving Stevens off and being like, no, I'm going to do what Kyrie wants to do. I don't care what you say. And watching Stevens get like emasculated like that by Kyrie, I think that Tatum and Brown just lost respect for him. And so they just started tuning him out. So when Udoka came in, a coach who hasn't been emasculated by Kyrie, I just think that they were much more open to actually listening to what he had to say. But the same thing has happened to Steve Nash in Brooklyn. He gets absolutely no respect from his players because Kyrie is going to do what Kyrie wants to do. And when other players in the team see Kyrie waving off Steve Nash's plays and just saying, no, I'm going to do Kyrie, then they don't respect their coach either. So Nash is probably going to get fired. And yeah, I mean, it's been a joke. What's going on over there? He's getting completely outcoached. His rotations are all over the place. And then the biggest play in this game, I think the biggest play in this game came out of a timeout. So I was just talking about how all of the timeouts that Udoka took were so perfect, and just the timing and the response was great. Meanwhile, in the fourth quarter, I think the Celtics were up by 10 or 12 points, and the Nets, they kept making these pushes and we kept pushing back. The Nets took a timeout. They needed a play. They needed a big play because time was starting to run out, and they turned the ball over on the inbounds. Grant Williams makes an incredible deflection on the inbounds, which leads to a Tatum layup. And I just said in that moment, I think there was maybe 5 or 6 minutes left. I said, the game is over. That's it. You don't come back from that. That is so demoralizing, where you are fighting for your life and every possession matters. You take a timeout, you draw up a play, and you turn it over on the inbounds to give up a transition layup. I mean, it was shocking. The execution is just so poor. Ben Simmons, let's talk about the clown on the sidelines. I don't want to spend too much time talking about him either because he doesn't deserve to be talked about, but he obviously wants to be talked about. Otherwise, why would you dress like a clown on the sideline? There was just this one camera angle that I saw, and I paused it and I just said, what is this guy doing? Like, you haven't played basketball in a year. You've never played with this team. And yet on the sideline, the whole team is dressed in black, and you're wearing like purple and yellow, and just like, could you call any more attention to yourself? Could you be any more of a distraction for a team that really doesn't need one? It's insane. Like, I don't understand what's wrong with this guy. And then this whole idea that he's going to come back and play in game 4, that, you know, there's part of me that says, actually, yeah, come back and play in game 4. This game's perfect for you because it doesn't matter. And you've proven to be a guy who can only play in games that don't matter. When games are actually serious and there's pressure, you crumble. So maybe he will come back and play in game 4. Maybe it's perfect for him to play in a game that doesn't matter. But I just think the whole thing is ridiculous. I have no faith in Ben Simmons. The fall from him being this defensive player of the year candidate, multi all-star, to where he's at now, I'm just not. I've got to see it, man. I've got to see Ben Simmons play basketball again before I believe that he can actually play basketball, because the mental issues that he's going through are not exaggerated. They are for real. His fall in the playoffs last year, and then his whole situation this year, just pouting, crying like a baby, doesn't want to play, can't take criticism, is afraid to fail, demands a trade, gets a trade, hurts his back just from sitting around in sweatpants. And then now he's making like his own pronouncements on when he's going to be ready to play. Like, I'm pretty sure these reports that Ben Simmons is going to play in game 4 come from Ben Simmons. Like, I'm pretty sure there was a quote where like they asked Steve Nash about it. Like, oh, we heard reports Ben Simmons is going to play in game 4. And Steve Nash was like, well, that's news to me. So like, do you realize how insane that is? That like your coach doesn't even think you're going to play or doesn't even know if you're ready to play, but you think you're ready to play. I mean, it just shows you how much of a mess this team is as far as like cohesion and team spirit. And it's a disaster. And Ben Simmons he's just a distraction at this point, just like how he looked on the sidelines. He's a literal clown at this point, and it's going to make absolutely no difference in this series. If he comes back, if he doesn't come back, it does not matter. What can you say bad about the Celtics? Because anyone who's ever listened to me knows I'm usually very negative, and everything I've said so far has been incredible. So let's not leave out the one piece of negativity that I still have. Derrick White. You know, I haven't been a fan of this trade since this happened. I don't dislike Derrick White, the player, even though he's been pretty terrible in this playoff series so far. Like, we play 9 guys, and he's easily the 9th best guy that we play, which is, you know, he's the worst. He's the worst player that we're playing right now, and it's not close. He's being outplayed by Tice. He's being outplayed by Pritchard. Everybody. Now, I still like him as a player, especially I like him as our 9th best player. It's a good 9th best player to have. But I just the value of that trade, I will never understand, and it's terrible. The fact that we gave up a first-round pick and players and potentially another first-round pick is just such a terrible, terrible value. I mean, look at the value that we're getting from Tice, who was basically like a throw-in. And then look at the value that we're getting for Derrick White. Imagine that we have given up 2 first-round picks for Derrick White. And don't tell me that first-round picks don't matter, even with the Celtics track record of screwing up like half their picks. Look at what Grant Williams is doing in this series. Look at what Peyton Pritchard is doing in this series. Those are the picks that we gave up for Derrick White. Those are late first-round picks. And don't tell me that those 2 players aren't making a huge difference in this series. So just a terrible, terrible value for that trade. I'm never going to like it. I'll never defend it. But I do still like Derrick White as a player. I think he's having a really rough time integrating himself with this team, figuring out where he fits. He looks like he's terrified to shoot. I can only imagine that he's going to get better because I don't think he can really get worse. But yeah, that part hasn't been great. Last thing I wanted to talk about is I am just so happy that there is this pushback now on NBA super teams, because I hated it. I hated it in real time when it was happening. LeBron really started the whole thing by I'm going to South Beach. And ever since then, there has just been this impetus by NBA owners and teams to build these super teams. Oh, we need 2 or 3 superstars to win. We need to put them together unnaturally so that we can win. And I've hated it. I've just hated it so much. It doesn't really exist in any other sports. It feels unnatural. And I'm just loving watching these super teams crumble. So obviously you have this Brooklyn team where they had the big 3. And I made a YouTube video 2.5 years ago, I think, when this team assembled 2 or 3 years ago, basically saying this is going to be the worst big 3 of all time. It was a hot take, believe it or not, at the time, because I say crazy things all the time. I say dumb things sometimes too. But man, that podcast I put out, I've never been more right about anything. This big 3 now is a big 2 or 2.5 or 1.5 or whatever you want to call it, has been an absolute failure. This is the 3rd year and they've done nothing. And Harden is gone and Kyrie is, who knows what's going on with that. It's a disaster. And I love it. I love that it's a disaster because I don't think this is good for the NBA. Looking at the Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George, again, 2 or 3 years in, they've done absolutely nothing. Looking at the Lakers is a weird one because the Lakers won a championship. So you can probably say that their little super team rebuild was a success, but they also didn't make the playoffs this year, couldn't even make it through the play-in, and they look like they're going to be probably a disaster next year as well. So I'm just really, really pleased with watching all of these super teams crumble. I hope it becomes a thing of the past. I like it much more when teams try to develop naturally. But yeah, that's all I got for the Celtics and Nets. Um, Celtics still don't feel like they've played their best basketball, and yet they're going to make it through this series very comfortably. And who knows what's going to happen next? Likely facing the Bucks in the second round, even though they've had moments where they've struggled with Chicago. The Bucks, who are without Middleton right now, who's got, I think, a hamstring injury. There's a lot of strange injuries going around. Embiid's thumb seems to be messed up. Scotty Barnes twisted his ankle, though I think he was back today. Chris Middleton hurt his hamstring. Devin Booker hurt his hamstring. So a lot of teams are feeling it, feeling the injury bug right now. And I want to knock on wood here. The Celtics seem like they're healthy and are going to be more healthy soon if Rob Williams keeps coming back. So likely looking at a second round matchup versus the Bucks, who will be with or without Middleton for part of that series. But Celtics are going to have the home court advantage. And to be honest with you, I can't imagine why anyone wouldn't think that the Celtics are going to be the favorite in that series, despite the fact that Giannis is, in my opinion, the best player in the world. I had him ranked number one coming into the season, and I don't think there's really anything I've seen this year that would change that. But the Bucks, there's just something different about them this year. Last year, they had much more of an air of invincibility about them. They had a better team, a better record, better plus minus. And this Bucks team is just, they waver. I don't know what it is, but they're not the same team. And I think Celtics are just a better team, and they have home court. And I think that they're going to be able to win that series in 7. And then around the NBA with some of these other series, again, just a lot of injuries, a lot of strange stuff happening. Phoenix, like, almost lost to the Pelicans again. Chris Paul had to take over in the fourth quarter. So they're having way more trouble with the Pelicans than anyone expected. I picked Phoenix to run the table this year, and they're struggling with the Pelicans. So not sure how I feel about that. Utah tied the series up in the weirdest way. They couldn't win when Doncic wasn't there, but now that Doncic came back today, they win. It's very weird. But that series is tied 2-2, could go either way. Minnesota is giving Memphis all they can handle, another surprising series. 76ers, even with Embiid looking like he might have hurt his thumb, are going to handle the Raptors. The Raptors won today, but it's not enough. And the Heat gave up one to Atlanta, but they're going to roll through that series as well. The Heat might be the team that Celtics fans want to really think about and fear, because there's likely going to be a Celtics, best case scenario is probably Celtics Heat Eastern Conference Finals. And we know how that went in the bubble, so that will be a really interesting series. But yeah, I think there's been some really great stuff going on in the NBA this playoffs. I've really enjoyed it, but especially with these Celtics, man, it is such a great time to be a Celtics fan. And I just wanted to put out another pod. We'll see how often I continue doing these after games. But let me know your thoughts about this Celtics team. How far do you think they're going to go? What do you think is wrong with the Nets? And yeah, I'll see you next time.